Hello you beautiful Aunt Bessies, and welcome back to Couch Potatoes. Today we're having a discussion around our game of the year and hope to see it win at the Game Awards, Alan Wake 2. But firstly, let's go on a little history lesson to give those who don't know a bit of background to the Alan Wake franchise and the genius that drives it, Remedy Entertainment. Warning that this video does contain spoilers for previous titles and also Alan Wake 2 itself. Before we get into the video, please consider subscribing. It's free and it massively boosts our reach in finding more potatoes, building a great community and bringing you more videos about the love for video games we want to share with you. Remedy Entertainment are a Finnish developer that for the most part are independent. They have some minority shareholders like Tencent and Ascendo, but they mainly work with publishers they choose to make, create and present their games. This has allowed them the freedom to do what they want when they want. Remedy have been making games since 1995 with the release of Death Rally, a chaotic racing game that used a top-down bird's eye view stationary camera to navigate its circuits, a lot like Micro Machines if any of you are old enough to remember that gem. However, with the addition to crazy power-ups and upgrades, a lot like Mario Kart but more Mad Max with a continuous progression system, this game was one of a kind. This fan favourite game got a remake in 2011 on mobile and was very well received. Following the success of Death Rally, Remedy's next title was one that shook up the gaming world in a big way, jumping straight into Max Payne. Max Payne was one of the biggest games to hit the gaming industry in 2001. This cross-platform masterpiece is set as a neo-noir playable graphic novel and is based on an NYPD detective who found his wife and child murdered by a bunch of junkies. As he seeks his path of revenge, he ventures down a rabbit hole, uncovering a mafia set on pushing a new designer drug called Valkyr. This dark and gothic tale is playable as a balls-to-the-wall third-person action shooter. This game was the first to introduce a very unique mechanic, the incredibly impressive bullet time, a feature massively popularised by The Matrix. Max Payne shoots his way through what feels like a million bullets, telling a tale that is both engaging and fun, whilst keeping you second guessing on what messed up situation you're going to be finding yourself in next, walking through your drug-fueled nightmares, navigating your way through a dark hell, with only the trails of your baby's blood to get you back. As you can tell, this game is super messed up, but it has never left my memory. This game also gained an equally great sequel. Many argue that it was better, but I can't replace the memory the first game left on me. Replacing the writer's iconic posing face that was fixed stuck with no change throughout the first game, I just held the first game much closer to my heart. There was a third game as well, but this was not Remedy's game, but instead Rockstar, the co-publisher. They bought the rights to the franchise and created their own version of the game, which was a fine game, but not great in my opinion, but still enjoyable nonetheless. Remedy Max Payne were using their own built engine, Max FX. Just think about this for a second. Many developers today don't even do this. They use the tools of others to help structure their ideas and create what we play today. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this in any shape or form, but making your own game engine for games often separates you from the crowd. Another example of this is the highly popular Baldur's Gate 3 using their own Divinity engine. However, Remedy has a habit of taking their engines. This is quite a flex and I thought it should be highly appreciated. Tip of the hat, Remedy. On this note, the next game was to be written by the great mind of Sam Lake as Alan Wake. A game I'm ashamed to say I've slept on, so don't have much to say on this for now. But a game which yet again was developed in the house engine, which at the time was dubbed Alan Wake Engine. Creative, I know, considering all the above, but this eventually will be renamed Northlight Engine. This engine was a cost to the team who refused to use Microsoft's engine for the first game, or Epic's Unreal Engine 5 for Alan Wake 2, but they chose to stick to their guns. Following the success of Alan Wake, a sequel was on the horizon. However, Remedy pivoted on this and it became Quantum Break, another game that flew under my radar, and we'll cover more on this another time. Control was released in 2019 and published with 505 Games, and this is where I managed to get back into what was becoming the Remedy connected universe. I mean, the MCU did it, and then the Snyderverse, so let's see it in video games. Why not? Control is another game where I got to see Sam Lake's writing get weird. This mindfuck of a game throws you into the world inside of the FBI FBC building called the Oldest House. Yep, you heard me right. A world inside a building. Not only that, but you are led here by a telepathic voice in your head called Polaris, letting you know your kidnapped brother from when you was a kid is being kept here as an experiment. Oh, and just as a cherry on top, the director responsible is dead on arrival from what looks like suicide, and the service weapon laying on the floor is what you pretty quickly have to use to protect yourself from overtaken FBC agents possessed by the hiss. There's an out-of-control energy from another dimension that was being held and experimented with the FBC. You quickly find out your brother's here, but the information will only be provided if you help the FBC's executives, the board. These guys hide behind telephones, providing instructions to bounce in and out of building floors and a dimension within them called the astral plane. With the help of Polaris and a paranatural entity that takes the form of a janitor, shout out to my guy Artie, we delve deeper into the story of the FBC's failed attempts to investigate and control the paranatural, uncovering artifacts of power they've seized and poorly experimented on, only to find themselves overwhelmed and in need of rescue. And once Jessie tidies up the mess of the FBC, they admit they've had her brother for some time due to his connection with other worlds and supernatural abilities. He was being groomed to be the next director, but they messed up accidentally releasing the Hiss, which took over your brother Dylan. They also admit they found an entity called Hedron who is actually Polaris. When you meet this entity yourself, it and you are attacked by the Hiss, destroying Hedron and trying to do to you what it did to your brother. However, you find Polaris lives on taking refuge in your mind and helps you take back your sanity. You discover Dylan and the Hiss are trying to take over the board, and now it's your job to stop them. And in doing so, you free your brother from the Hiss, leaving him in a coma, and you get promoted to the director of the FBC. Job well done. This game has some of the greatest action gameplay you can hope for. The ever-evolving powers and gun upgrades means by the end of the game, you're able to fly, use telekinesis, and your gun morphs into all types of variety weapons, blasting enemies and clearing rooms like some sort of goddess. And just when you thought the fun was over, DLC ties this game directly into the Alan Wake universe, as you find his previous psychiatrist roaming in the hallway of the oldest house, straight from the darkness, the alternate dimension from Alan Wake, and consumed by the Hiss. After playing through this game, I was actually very excited to play another highly anticipated title in the form of a survival horror in Alan Wake 2. But first, I needed to do some homework on the first one. So here's what I found out. Alan Wake is a writer that, under the success of his writing, threw himself under the pressure of producing another book for his publishers. His books were based off of an FBI agent who goes by the name of Alex Casey, solving cases and catching bad guys. This guy had some similarities to Max Payne, and here's what we know so far in his book. It's named Alex Casey, much like the first game named Max Payne, and the second called The Fall of Alex Casey. And for reference, the second Max Payne game, you guessed it, The Fall of Max Payne. Anywho, Alan Wake decides to take a vacation with his girlfriend Alice to get away from his writers and publishers' pressures. The pair head to Bright Falls, a small, quaint town, to clear his mind. Upon getting there, he finds out it was all a play for him to have somewhere quiet to write. Oh, and Alice has also arranged for you to see a shrink, the same shrink that ends up in control. Alan gets pissed off, throws a wobbler, and storms out. Shocker. When he finally calms down and heads back, he hears the screams of Alice in the house. He rushes in to find her dragged into a lake by an unknown force. Alan dives in the lake after her, only to black out and find himself waking up in a crashed car, not knowing what the fuck's going on. Turns out he's now one step away from a loony bin. No one believes him. The cabin never even existed. He's written his book and gives the shrink a slap for good measure. Good effort. However, his book that has now been written starts to become reality, with town folks being overcome by the same darkness that took Alice. After finally getting somewhere with the folks at Bright Springs, it turns out the lake is haunted by a dark presence. Alan calls in his buddy and publisher rep Barry to help him find Alice. Alan and Barry...
Oh, it's not me! My name not Alan, my name Barry.
He discovered that something like this has happened before many years ago to a guy called Thomas Zane, a poet who had a fascination for diving in a Bioshock type suit. Tom lost his wife, who drowned in a lake observing this power. We discovered the darkness has a connection with artists, using their art to reshape reality and tell its own stories, and it's never pleasant ones. At the heart of the darkness is an entity who goes by the name Scratch. He takes the form of these artists, trying to re-enter the normal world and being a dick to loved ones whilst trapping you inside his own twisted version of reality. While you try and save them from him in the dark place, Alan is told by Zane that irrational Alan is still inside the cabin, controlling the dark place. The rational Alan must regain control in order to have any chance of escaping the dark place. Alan Wake finds himself trapped inside the dark place, allowing Alice to stay away from it and live on. So, we arrive at Alan Wake 2. I'm going to hold the synopsis and plot back a bit here, and instead give our thoughts on why this game is our game of the year. Let's start with the visuals and art direction. This game is about as realistic as it gets. You genuinely feel like you've been thrown into the game, and it's honestly beautiful. We're at the peak of visual fidelity. Reflections, lighting, and this eerie cool colour palette makes you feel like you're in the autumn Halloween season of a small town in Canada. The performance of this game is very well regulated and steady. Facial animations are believable and well crafted. This, mixed with well designed live action cutscenes that don't feel out of place while transitioning from gameplay, shows true accomplishment to how good this game looks and feels to play. Audio design on this game is outstanding, well balanced and detailed. From the faint whispers calling your name game to the over-the-top jump scares, the audio keeps tension and your attention. Speaking of jump scares, this game does not hold back. Having played a good variety of horror games in my time, I feel like that this is up there with the best of them. Yeah, there's many cheap jump scares that some of us may find repetitive, but they certainly kept me on my toes and definitely kept us making stupid noises throughout our playthroughs. However, cheap jump scares only get you through so far. This game came up with creative ways to keep you at the edge of your seat, whether that's running as not to die or scared to walk into a room, at which point you get punished with psychological scares and uncertainties. Seriously, I thought this game was scary, but it did it without being stereotypical. This game, like all survival horror games, relies on conserving ammo, being accurate whilst chasing your battles, mixed with a plethora of puzzles to solve, and although the enemies are complete bullet sponges, I personally took enjoyment ploughing every round into their faces as it kept my heart rate up. The puzzles also deserve a massive shout out. Yes, finding codes and keys to open boxes are still mechanics that will always be in games, but just trying to progress through the story with scene switching and changing the world around you, looking for a new exit or entrance is very fresh and innovative. Scenes and story beat moments in this game give you the option early on to decide how you want to tackle this game, allowing you to switch between Alan and Saga's story between chapters or playing like we did, which was just straight up marathon one character at a time, and it never failed to disappoint. I just kept thinking about this game when I wasn't playing it, and that in itself is when I love a game the most. Without giving away too much, there's a section in this game where you basically have to navigate through a music video, and it will be in my memory when I'm in a nursing home to tell some young buck about the games in my day, although I'll be trying my best to keep playing till I'm dead. This game has been years of Remedy building up to this moment, and I'm sure they're able to keep going, with Easter eggs and tie-ins around every corner. Sam Lake's face is back as Alex Casey, with James McAfee as his voice, the same voice actor for Max Payne.
Hello? As I answered the phone, I could hear nothing but heavy breathing on the other line. A twisted, perverted voice whispers in the darkness.
You know who I am?
This feels like something else they could consider bringing into the connected universe with ties mentioned earlier. 2023 has been one of the richest years of gaming, and my wallet has felt every penny. This game over everything I've played this year has given me more smiles and screams than any other. It would be incredibly rude of us not to mention and credit Baldur's Gate 3 and Tears of the Kingdom. And believe me, they deserve the titles in their own right too, and I feel very passionate about those games. But when I sit down and think of what game has been occupying my excitement to get up and play again, this is it. So, there we have it. It's settled. Tell us we're wrong in the comments. We dare you. Keep it respectful. We love all your feedback and opinions. Thank you for listening to another load of bollocks. Please hit the sub button on your way out, and if you want to see our complete playthrough of Alan Wake 2, please visit our Twitch page where all the videos are there for your enjoyment. Have a great day. We are Couch Potato.